35,000-pound gross vehicle weight dump truck requested by the Department of Public Works. Borrow the sum of $39,000 to purchase a 3/4 ton pickup truck for use by the Cemetery Department requested by the Department of Public Works. Borrow the sum of $60,000 to perform asbestos abatement at the Little School requested by the School Department. Transfer from free cash the sum of $15,000 to make improvements to the fire station bunk room requested by the Board of Selectmen. Borrow the sum of $250,000 to make improvements to town roads requested by the Department of Public Works. Borrow the sum of $350,000 for the construction of a maintenance garage and accompanying septic system for the Hillview Golf Course as requested by the Hillview Commission. Borrow the sum of $40,000 to make improvements to the Lakeside Water Treatment Plant filters as requested by the Water Department. Transfer from Hillview retained earnings the sum of $50,000 to provide for improvements to the Kids Spot Playground requested by the Recreation Department, and to authorize the Treasurer, with the approval of the Board of Selectmen, to issue bonds or notes therefore as specified in Article 7 as printed in the warrant.
You sure that's it?
Chapter 2.
Does the Board of Selectmen wish to make a recommendation?
The Board of Selectmen unanimously recommends.
Presentation?
I would like to defer right now to the Town Administrator, Greg Valiakonis.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Greg Valiakonis, the Town Administrator. What I will try to do is I will go through each of the requests, give you some information, give you some background, and show you some photographs as to documenting what the need is for the capital items. The first item is the town does have a definition for capital items. In brief, it's projects that cost at least $10,000 a year. They need to be tangible assets, and they need to have a useful life of at least 5 years. The program requirements are ingrained in the town charter. There's different provisions that are included in there that say that we need to present the capital plan annually to town meeting and request funding for it. So that's where the basis of this request does come from. And capital improvement plan does demonstrate sound fiscal planning. I think that we all agree that a capital improvement plan that encompasses all department requests, and I'll get some more information on that, is very helpful in terms of identifying what the town's needs and priorities are. The capital improvement process is something that's handled internally through the town administrator, the finance director, but it also includes the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee. We get together, we review all the requests. What we do is we prioritize those requests. We identify what the potential sources of funds are. And ultimately, the final question is, what can we afford? Because ultimately, there are many more projects that are meritorious of funding that we just simply cannot afford to be able to do. The total request of all capital improvement projects submitted for action this evening was $2,812,875. That included municipal departments, and it also included the schools. You'll see that it included an amount for the Water and Hillview Fund. The total recommendations this evening are $1,249,475, of which you can see the amounts for town departments is about $650,000. The Hillview and Water Enterprise Funds is $390,000, and the school department is $210,000. Of this total amount that we've requested funding, almost all of it is to be bonded. A small portion of it, you'll notice that there were some amounts that were just barely over the $10,000 threshold. We are funding those through other funds, but the majority of what you see before you this evening will be bonded. The town will go out and it will do a short-term borrowing, and then in September of 2009, what we will do is aggregate those requests up and go out on the bond market and sell bonds to provide permanent long-term financing for these projects. The first request is the Department of Elder Affairs van. It replaces a 2002 minibus that was purchased for $51,000. The vehicle has 70,000 hard miles, and if you've driven it or been in it, you probably know that it is hard miles. It's a very inefficient vehicle. It's 7.6 miles per gallon. It's significant body rot, and we'll show you some photographs of what that is. It has ongoing brake problems. The proposal is to purchase a new 10-passenger van and also a van that has ability for wheelchairs. As you can see, it is a priority of the Department of Elder Affairs. It's also a request that came to us last year, and we deferred because it wasn't high enough on the priority list. This is just a real quick photograph that shows you some of the damage to the existing vehicle. This is looking from underneath, and you can see some of the damage near the doorway where people get into the vehicle. This is the undercarriage of the vehicle, and you can see that there's really not much holding the body and chassis together. It's rusted out substantially, and when we see things like this, and there's probably another 10 or 15 slides that I could show you that show you similar type of damage to the vehicle, we need to do the right thing. Take that vehicle out of service and replace it with something that's safe and efficient for our citizens. Second proposal is for the police station HVAC. The amount was $30,400. It gives us the ability to reconfigure the system in the dispatch or the 911 area, and that's the area that's occupied by the day sergeant or the duty sergeant, and it's also the lobby area. Presently, what you have is a fishbowl effect where you have the E911 area, which is behind the glass. The system that's in place right now is not able to properly regulate the temperature in that area, and it is an area that's being used 24/7. The proposed solution would install an independent unit. It would move the thermostat, and these problems were discovered last fall when we occupied the building. Just as a note, both the contractor and the architect on this project have been notified of this deficiency, and it is possible that we will affect cost recovery at a later date from those parties. But we need to proceed in terms of doing the work now, because if we delay for cost recovery, we might be here another 3-4 years from now without a resolution. The next proposal is for Phase 3, Loman Seat of the Cemetery. You'll remember last year, there was a phase to come in and do the initial work in Phase 3. This is to finish that phase. $60,000 to loam and seed to delineate the lots. As you know, under Mass General Law, you may not know, cities and towns are required to provide cemetery space for its residents. It's one of those quirky provisions in state law that people don't really know much about, but there's also a moral and an ethical obligation that we need to follow. So this is as part of the ongoing expansion of the Riverside Cemetery. And the master plan provides for development of 1.5 acres every 2 years. Please keep in mind that there are 13 acres that still remain for future development. The next proposal is upgrading the emergency lighting in various locations throughout town. It's upgrading the fire extinguishers and the emergency lighting in all of our municipal buildings, and it's necessary for code compliance. It is something that we program into our plan. It is one of those small capital items that we're not borrowing for. We're paying for this with sources available, other available funds. Next is administrative vehicles. The amount requested, and for some reason this didn't translate my original request, but there are 2 vehicles that are requested here. They would be for the code inspection and health departments. Strike the language that you see here on the fire departments. I know Chief Harris will be disappointed to hear that. These are items that were requested in 2006. They replace personal vehicles which are being used by our inspectors. And for the privilege of allowing those personal vehicles to be used, the town does pay out a sizable amount of money of about $14,000 a year in personal vehicle stipends to those employees that are affected. So certainly the town would have the ability to save a substantial amount of money, and also equally important in my judgment is providing for professionalism and easy identification of our inspectors when they're in the field, that they have marked vehicles. So if there are any questions, the vehicle is not for me personally, it's for other departments. Next is the 35,000-pound GVW dump truck in the DPW. It replaces a 1990 vehicle. This is a photograph of the actual vehicle which is being replaced. It's 17 years old, has severe rot, body mount, cab frames, door frames, and there are safety concerns. It's got almost 78,000 miles. It's incurred almost $39,000 in repairs to date. We anticipate another $11,000 in repairs if we don't do anything. It's important to note that this was something that we hoped to replace last fiscal year. We didn't have the money, we deferred it. It's back again, and it's something that we do feel that is urgent that we need to address. As an important note, it is used year-round. It's used in the winter. It's used to provide snow removal. It does include a sander, a belly plow, a scraper, and spot chains. So it is something that's a major portion of the DPW fleet. The next vehicle is a 3/4 ton pickup in the DPW, and I guess I can go through this fairly quickly. You'll notice by the weeds growing around the vehicle that it's not presently being used. It's used by the cemetery division. It is a 12-year-old vehicle. It's got 122,000 miles on it, and you'll see that there are $15,000 in repairs and another $6,500 in repairs going forward. If you can read the details, you'll see that it also has body rot, powertrain problems, and most importantly, it's unable to pass state inspection in its present condition. It was another one of those items that was deferred from last year. We purchased very few vehicles as part of our fiscal year 2008 capital program, which is the reason why you may see some additional things, more vehicles coming up this year than we may have seen in the past. The other item is $250,000 to support the town's ongoing road program. I think it's critically important that roads service every one of you in this room, whether you have children or whether you're someone who's on fixed income. This is our second year of our 5-year program. It does support the town's pavement management program. So the engineering department in the DPW has established a pavement management program, which is based upon the fact that you try to put money into roads to keep them up to date versus letting them go and then spending 5 or 10 times more to do the same work years down the road. There is an equal match that we do provide through Chapter 90, which is state aid money that comes in for road improvements, but that state aid money is limited to major arterial roads in the community or connector roads in the community. This allows us to get into some of the subdivisions, do some of the small roads that otherwise aren't eligible for state funding, and it does include paving, overlays, rehabilitation, and microservicing and drainage work. So it is something that the Board of Selectmen and I have deemed as critical going forward. The next item is $15,000 for the fire station bunk room. Badly in need of upgrading. There's no partitioning that exists right at the present time. The room is used by on-duty firefighters. Keep in mind that this is a space that's used on a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week basis. There are 4 firefighters on duty at all times, including night shifts. So the bunk room is something that is necessary. It is their living quarters, and the town does feel a responsibility to make sure that the living quarters are sanitary, they're safe, and we want to take care of the people that we have in place right now. Keep in mind that there's always the possibility that the town will hire a female firefighter at some day, and when we do so, we'll have to make improvements. The intent here is to do that before that happens. The water department has requested funding for the lakeside water filters. This is the second year of a continuing ongoing program. It is something that the water department needs to do on an ongoing basis to provide clean water to you as citizens. It's preventative maintenance work. It requires we need to do it on a regular basis to keep up to date. And then the final item that's requested through the water department is providing emergency power and security. That would include generators and security cameras that would safeguard the town's public water supply. And with that, I would thank you. Thank you for your time, and I would defer, with the moderator's permission, to the superintendent of schools if there are any questions about, if there's any presentation on the school items. Thank you.
Dr. Trout.